Okay, a little bit of an experiment here. We have let me see, how much is this? This is I think this is a 4-inch Claybord tile by Ampersand Art. No, 3.5 inch square. 3.5 inch square tile by Ampersand Art. And these are going to be known as art tiles. Okay, they were, the surface is a Claybord Smooth. All right, and this material also used to go by the name of stamp board, but in smaller configurations. And this board is a hardboard panel with a soft clay surface. Okay, now it's not super soft, like you're not going to be able to move it around, but it's a surface that is similar to scratchboard in that you can apply media to it of all different types, and you can scratch back into the surface if you want to. Some people just use it as a panel to paint on and whatnot, but that ability to go back into that clay and to do a subtractive type of mark is really a pretty powerful ability when it comes to different types of surfaces that we might be utilizing in any type of art or craft style, because that reverse mark is not just like one other type of thing that you can do. It really introduces an entire different dimension to a piece, and it can be a quite significant ability depending on how much you use it. Okay, now someone asked me if there are some different types of stamp imagery out there that is kind of reminiscent of your linoleum block cut prints or wood block prints. They love that type of look. And I don't know of anything like that in stamping where you can kind of replicate those styles of artwork, okay? But if you want to do it in stamping, one of the things that you can do, instead of working on paper with an inherently woodblock looking print, okay, it would have to be some kind of block that's already kind of divided up into the sections, but it would be really limiting in terms of how you would utilize it, because you'd print it out and it would be a finished piece. You'd have to use that image every time going forward. You can color it differently, but it's not going to be very versatile. So my suggestion to them was to use, or to look into at least, these Claybord tiles, okay, art tiles, I guess we'll start calling it that. But their ability to go into it, I think we can give it, this piece here, a carved look, okay? And I'll show you that when we get around to that step of the process right here. I'm just going to stamp out something that's pretty simple, okay? This is a 3.5 by 3.5, so it's oftentimes, unless we're doing a lot of different types of embellishment, it's usually a smaller kind of overall piece than what we're used to working on, but you can get a lot into a piece like this, okay? We used to even do inchies, okay, that's a 1 inch by 1 inch, and you can stamp out a little bit of a scene on a 1 inch tile, so 3.5 by 3.5 is significantly larger than that. Okay, now I want to give this piece kind of a little bit of a linoleum block looking print look, okay? It won't be totally like that, but what I want to do is I want to tone in the background a little bit. I mean, we can tone it in a lot, but I'm not going to do that. And this won't be entirely, reminiscent. I'm not trying to replicate your, I'm not trying to replicate or fool anyone that this is a linoleum block cut, but what we want to do is reference it and to give it that feel, that overall spirit of a piece, okay? Now, linoleum block cuts, you can do different colors and different sections and whatnot. I can color this in all kinds of different media. We can do alcohol pens in the background or whatever. But on this one right here, let's just keep it black and white, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this piece right here, which is, a little composition. We have the leaves up here, the birch tree, and then the reeds down here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I want to give this a bit of a compositional containment feel, okay? Meaning, instead of being kind of part of a greater whole, I want this to look as though it's a world unto itself, okay? So one really easy way is to just take this and to give it a vignette, meaning you darken the perimeter like this, okay? And from a compositional aspect, it states that this piece is kind of a world unto itself. It's a composition unto itself. Okay, it's like a stage that you're creating here when you do this type of technique or method. It's something that studio portraiture would employ. You always have that kind of darker perimeter around, someone sitting there. And that's what we're doing here, okay? I'm also darkening it in like this because I'm going to be putting in these kind of cut-looking marks, okay? We're not actually cutting into this board. I guess you can say we are to an extent because we'll be scratching off some of the material or the media that we're applying here. So you kind of are cutting back into that. And of course that's reminiscent of, your linoleum block cuts where you're, using a linoleum block knife or whatever tools they use these days to carve out a piece. Okay, now this individual that wanted that said, okay, they want that look, but they're not a carver or something like that. Okay, I mean, neither am I. I've done it before, but I'm definitely not a printmaker, but I think we can kind of capture somewhat of the spirit of it. Okay, now one of the things I didn't mention about this clay, it's not like going to, a hardware store or a Home Depot and buying a glazed, fired tile, okay? This doesn't require specialty inks. This soft clay surface on here is accepting of just about any media, all right? So dye-based inks on here work absolutely fine. It absorbs and it soaks in the media that you're working with. A lot of it stays, somewhat surface-oriented. As you can see, it's not just all getting absorbed into the paper, or into the surface. But like a matte, it's similar to, I would say, like a matte paper in terms of how it accepts media. It's somewhere in between. I don't know. Maybe it's like a coated matte cardstock, I would say. That's kind of the feel of it. It's a little bit more absorbent, though, I feel, because clay inherently is very absorbent. Okay, so it feels like it's taking the inks a little bit faster and absorbing them off of in this case, a paper towel, than a matte paper, but pretty similar though. Now I say a coated matte paper because these tiles here, I mean, let's see if I can. So they have a little slight sheen to them, and of course a coated paper, in terms of cardstock, okay, in the paper industry, it's clay coating on those. That's the thing that's giving it that surface. It's sealing off the pulp of the paper. Okay, I think that is about right, about where I want it. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I want to go a little bit darker. I want my marks on this to be a little bit. I don't know. I want them to stand out a little bit more. So let's create a little bit more contrast, actually. A sponge would probably be very good for this now that I'm doing this. It's just going to hold more ink than this paper towel here. I don't know, usually when I'm playing around with something though, like a new, or a different type of methodology, or a different type of look, I tend to be very conservative in terms of my media application. So I like the media application to go on kind of slower. But as I do this, it occurs to me, I could have had more ink on this if I wanted to. And it would have been fine because I'm going a lot darker than what I kind of had in mind. But as I do this, I think, yeah, I think this is the way to go. Okay, so there's our kind of dark forest, right? I don't know. I could put something in the background too. I don't know. Could be a little deer or something in the background peeking around, but let's just keep it at that. Let's keep things really simple for right now. All right, now, one of the things that I really love, and I used to teach classes in this, we used to stamp scenes onto the tiles, and I don't know, we did it in colors and things like that. We stamped all kinds of different things, and we were mostly kind of removing things for highlights, okay? But in this case, we'll go into it and kind of give it more of that wood blocky feel, okay? Or linoleum block cuts. And doing that, I'm going to be doing more of a carved type of look, okay? With hard lines in it, okay? And that's not normally how I work on this, because it's perfect for things like highlights and kind of subtlety. But this one we're going to go for kind of a harder look. Okay, so that being said, there's all kinds of different tools out there that you can use on this tile. Some are sold by Ampersand Art. For different types of marks, you can go for kind of real scratchy looks with, they have these things called line tools. There's this kind of more wiry run that gives you kind of more a scratchy look. The ones that I've come to use most on these types of boards are the scratch knives. And there's different types of scratch knives too. There's kind of more of this blade looking one. It looks like a small butterfly knife or something like that, you know, to give you kind of a wider scratch. There's a real sharp kind of spear looking tip. Let's see, it's this one right here. Let's see if I can get this camera to focus in. See that tip right there? And that gives you a, you know, a very thin and consistent line. I mean, these aren't so sharp. It's not going to cut you like an X-Acto blade or something like that. I can go like this on my skin, right? And this one right here is kind of more of this leaf shape right here. And do you see that surface of it where it's been flattened down? That's how you sharpen these knives, like that. And that edge right here gives you kind of a wider cut than you would with something like this tip right here, okay? So these types are here, you do sharpen down, but you just kind of run it on a little sharpening stone or some fine sandpaper. And you don't want to grind it down too much, you just need to hone it a little bit because this edge here does get a little bit dull, you know, the more you use it. And this one you'd use by kind of a pulling motion like this, right on that edge. And these blades right here, these two come in a 2-pack by Speedball. Okay, and I mean you can get smaller blades like that, or like a pack of these blades too. But when selling to the public, it's more like in a pack, like a 2-pack, like that. So I don't know where you can get it. You can get it at art suppliers, online. If you have a really good art store near you, they might have it. I don't know if they have it at the chain stores. They might. Maybe in the calligraphy section or something like that. And this is just a calligraphy nib holder right here, these handles like this, okay? And you just pop that right in there like so. So any place that you would, you know, find, calligraphy tools, you'll find nib holders or whatnot. You can get a lot nicer ones. Some of them have, like cork at the end of it and whatnot. Okay, so let's get into this right here. And let's start defining some things here. These are just some leaves. And I'm going to go for this carved style of look here. And I'm just kind of defining some of these leaves on here. I mean, I could have stamped these out green too, and you can kind of go around them like that. And that would kind of be a little bit more reminiscent of a woodblock cut. You have these areas like this that you're carving into, a flat linoleum block surface, and the separation between all of the different forms is something that you can, apply printing ink to. And then when you run it through a press, it'll print out these different colors and whatnot. But I don't know, some people just do these linoleum block cuts, print, whatever masters, and then, they just do them in one color too. Very famous for things like woodblock prints, or like those Japanese and Chinese prints. You've seen them. The old kind of master woodblock printers. Okay, now this one, I mean, there's different ways I can approach this too. I can just kind of go around the perimeter of all these leaves. I'm just kind of doing these scratch marks like that right on the leaves themselves. It's really fun to do. When I used to teach this, and this isn't the look that I was going for, or we were going for in class when we stamped on these boards. But this, I don't know, there's something to the subtractive mark that is extremely relaxing. It's like the zen of I would say the mark, but it's almost like you're doing a reverse mark. Okay, I theorize that when doing something like this, or revealing light into dark, like I said, that this is a subtractive I thought that we could be accessing a different kind of hemisphere of the brain or something like that. It's, when we're thinking about things like negative space. And the reason for it is, people would be talking in class and, enjoying their time and whatnot. And then, when they started doing this reverse type of thing, the classes all of a sudden got really silent, even classes of like 20, 30 people. You can hear a pin drop in them. And then everyone was just kind of scratching away and, working on their pieces. And it happened every time, too. It wasn't just like one class, it was all of them, And after I was teaching this for like, I don't know, a year or something like that, I thought, there's something to this. And I kind of, there's something in myself, too. It's just, I'm blabbing away here, but, when I'm doing this, it just, you go into kind of this different zone. Alright, so isn't that kind of looking a little more like a wood block print? And it is, because I'm carving into it just like I'd be carving into some sort of a block print, or in stamping, people didn't, I don't know too many people that did linoleum block cuts, and I don't know of anyone in stamping that did wood block cuts, okay? But a lot of people did eraser carvings, because that's really related to rubber stamps, because when you carve into a rubber, like those Statler Mars style of erasers, you're in a sense creating your own rubber stamp out of that eraser. So yeah, I used to see that a lot early on, and things like Stamp of the Hand, a lot of their designs were kind of erase, that carved eraser block look. A lot of calligraphers did eraser carvings too, back when. I suppose they maybe still are, but I used to see that in the stamping world more often. People were, doing their own block carvings. You wouldn't do them with, like a scratch knife like that. You'd be doing it with, X-Acto blades and linoleum block cutters and that type of thing. But, I don't know. I would suggest trying that out if you're a long-time stamper and, there's something that you want to, feel like carving out. It's really quite fun. Alright, now over this I'm just kind of having to make it up because I can't see my impressions of my leaves over here anymore, but after, I don't know, whatever, 200 or 300 little scratches like this already, I've kind of got the feel of the imagery, so just kind of inventing my own leaves up here. But for the most part, in the other areas, I'm just kind of carving around the perimeter of the leaf. And you can carve in some of these branches too, if you want to. It's just, using this scratch knife like this. They also call them scraper tools, if I didn't mention that. It's just like a pencil. You're using a pencil, except you're just doing the reverse. You're scratching, and you're just scratching in one direction. You can press harder if you want to. I tend to keep it kind of a lighter touch. I'm just trying to kind of scratch off the media that I've applied and not kind of gouge into the clay too much. I mean, you certainly could, for more of a a vigorous looking type of mark, but for me, I'm just kind of going into it slightly. I am going into the clay a little bit. I know it, but not too much. Okay. You don't want to gouge all the way down to that hardboard panel or something like that. Okay, so I'm just kind of going around the side of those birch trees. Okay. Now you see you can't see that mark in here because there's no contrast between that that scratch and this area of white of the board there. You can see my marks more where I'm scratching into at least some of the black that's been applied. Okay, like that. Right now, these reeds are, you know what I mean? I don't know if going like this is going to be able to keep me on those really thin blades like that. So what I do is I flip it upside down because this is the natural motion of your hand, okay, like this. Okay, now if I was to go like this, this is a little bit harder. I can't see these things as easily. So I'm going to flip this up like this and try to generally stay on some of these reeds and like that. Okay. Just kind of going like this and going like that. Okay. If I go off some of the reeds, it's not really a big deal. Okay, so does that look like a carved kind of look right there? Things like this, these tiles are really great for all kinds of things. If you stamp a word stamp, or if you're doing whatever project you are on piece of tile like this too, you can, because it's three-dimensional and raised, it gives you a raised embellishment for your card. Okay, I like putting metallic inks on this pigment inks. I just dab it right into the ink to give it a perimeter when I'm done. I need to go get some more, metallic pad. I think mine's all dry. But I don't know, word stamps on here, you can, highlight your lettering and things like that and make your words look three-dimensional. These scratches like this. And just the possibilities are really quite extreme when you're talking about the dimensionality of this, but also this, the reverse mark ability. Okay, so, this, doesn't that look completely different in terms of the spirit of the piece now? And I'm just playing around with this too. There's probably other things I could be doing, but I'm not a carver, so I don't know. It's not coming to me exactly, but okay. Let's take a look at this background. Let's pretend that some of this area in the background, this tone that I've laid down, has been carved out. So that means all of this area in here would kind of be removed, but let's give it kind of a scratchy, kind of textural look, like we've removed some of the material, but some of it has been retained. Okay, meaning when someone has a linoleum block or wood, okay, the areas that are white have been completely carved into, right? It's been removed so that when they make this as a master print, it can print, and anything that's recessed is going to remain white, and these areas that are dark remain, or are going to print out, okay? So I'm going to give this area like it hasn't been completely removed, but some of the material still remains. If that makes sense. It probably doesn't make sense, but I don't know. I'll try to explain it better as I go here, but there's just some little kind of areas on that plane that are still at the same height as these other raised pieces, in theory, okay? I'm saying that, but I'm saying I'm going for that in look, not in actuality, because this is all kind of flat right here, but, again, in the spirit of, a true wood block or linoleum block type of print. I want that general type of look. A lot of things are very textural, and that's one of the possibilities, of course. I never took wood or printmaking in college, but I always wanted to. I just never had the open class periods, but whenever I'd walk around the print making room, they had these display boards of showing the work of some different classes, and I always thought those the printmaking area, in terms of just the types of pieces that I saw, I always thought it was some of the better looking pieces, even coming out from the beginning printmaking classes. Okay, now I'm doing some cross hatching in here, just to go for kind of a different type of texture. See that right there? Oh, now that I'm doing this, it occurred to me that I haven't worked on stamp board, Claybord pieces in a long time. But what I used to do is I used to tint these too. You can color tint these. One of the tools. I used to do this back when, before alcohol pens were, really popular. But you can go in here and you can tint this, with some different colors. And I was thinking alcohol pens might be really fantastic for that. You can color into it and then scratch back into that if you want to. If you want some color on the, or a texture on the color that you do. So you can do all kinds of things. Now, if you try to stamp over the top of this, because I have kind of scratched back into the surface somewhat, okay, there are going to be indentations on the board. So if you try to do something like impressions over the top of this, let's say if I stamped a solid, leaf over the top of this, it might not stamp into those grooves right there, even as shallow as they are. It might not stamp out. Let me try something here too. Okay, I want these trees to stand out a little bit more. Let's go into them and add. This is just a gray alcohol pen. Okay, let's get these birch trees. Let's give them a little bit more dimension. Okay, like I said, I can go in. I can scratch back into this. More if I want to. Okay, that was, I don't know, it's like a medium tone gray. Let's see if I have here's a warm gray. Go in there like that. I want those trees, those trunks to stand out a little bit more. Alright, let's go in and blend. Pens are a little bit dry on one end. Okay, here we go. I should store my pens sideways, but I just store them right up, right side up. Okay, here it goes. Thought it was a little dry. I just needed to. I mean, some of these pens, these are the first times I've used them. But you can kind of blend out that that ink with the alcohol pens. Alright, so that is that. Now, if you want to give a little bit of texturing to its trunks, I don't know, it looks pretty good as is, but let's try some of this. I think one of the things I'm looking at this, and because of all that, it's really quite busy of a piece. I'm using the sharp one now. A very fine line scratch knife. This piece lost a little bit of kind of general continuity in terms of a whole, but I don't know. Does it look like a kind of more of a wood block print to you now? I mean, it's certainly carved, of a surface. Personally, I don't think it looks like, those original impressions. It certainly doesn't, those, leaves up there certainly don't look like, that leaf anymore, right? It's really changed the spirit of it. And here's those reeds. Let's see. Here's my reed stamp like that. I mean, that certainly doesn't look like those reeds down there anymore. But I don't know. I think it looks like a carved piece. Okay? And it's because we are carving into it after all. Carving into the panel. So if you want a carved looking thing, you can do this with anything too. Like I said, you can do it with word stamps or whatever. But anyways, going back to that, my comment on the continuity here. I think everything looks a little bit too textured on the side. It's just buzzing, so what I'm doing right here is I'm just going back in and adding that strong vignette back into it. Okay? See that like that? Doesn't that look better with that around there like that? And then, I don't know, too, what you get is kind of various gradations of that scratch, too. Okay? So I'll put this around on the perimeter like this. And we have our strong vignette on here once again. Okay, now one of the things about these Ampersand products is that they come in different sizes. This one's kind of like a coaster size right here. So you can do whatever you're going to do on these with whatever media. And then what you do is, I like using like a polyurethane to coat these. It doesn't make it light fast. I mean, you can maybe spray it with a Krylon UV spray, and then go over it with a polyurethane. Polyurethane's kind of thicker. It's, you know, it's like for like outdoor furniture or something like that, or whatever. You can go with a spray. Spray's really convenient, but you also go with a can and really put a, you know, a thick layer of it down. It'll take a, you know, day or two to dry probably for you, depending on where you are, but it really gives it a pretty nice feel. It feels, like I said, like a glazed, fired tile. And it's a fantastic way to work. Okay, now, just to make things a little bit more interesting on this, here's some Walnut Stain Distress ink. Alright? That's the color, Walnut Stain. You can do any color on here. I would go with something fairly light, okay, if you do this, but let's take a look and see what this looks like. Let's give it a little bit of a kind of a antiqued look, okay? Antique linen would be good. And I don't know. Personally, I really like the distress inks for this purpose. Now, if you ever do this, one of the things when you start scratching into your surface and doing something, if you do it in one area, it's going to look kind of strange. You kind of have to bring an overall kind of a, you know, textural theme to the piece, and then, you know, you'll see that more of that continuity throughout the piece. Okay. Let me go into this now. Let me change some. There's a little bit of kind of this repetitious type of feel on those leaves up here. Let's go in and maybe I'll carve out kind of a thicker line in some of these areas just for a little bit of variation and kind of gesture. Or maybe, because light is coming from down here, maybe I'll make my cut line on the side of the leaf facing that light a little bit thicker. Not on every single leaf. I don't want to do this 200 times, and then I'll get, you know, I'll get into that repetitious type of feeling again, but just to add a little bit of variation here. The smaller sizes, going back to the sizes on these boards, there's some that are 2 by 2. There's the, it's like a domino size. There's the inchies. These 2 by 2 ones here are really fantastic for things like pins and magnets. You know, you put that little magnetic stripping on the back, or you put that little adhesive type of pin. saying pins. Well, what's that for? Well, it's like a pin or a magnet is really fantastic for really anyone, but like kids projects are really fantastic on these boards. I did a project with my son's preschool class, I believe it was, and also kindergarten. I can't remember which one it was. I think it's the kindergarten one where we made magnets. We just got some of that magnetic stripping and, put a strip of it on the back. And the kids, I was helping out in the kindergarten class for the project, the parent gift or whatever. And one of them was a little magnet, and we still have that one on the refrigerator. Alright, so see, that's kind of revealing those little leaves again. So when you look at it from a distance, it's a little bit more of a textural change, I guess you can say, for some variation. And then see where I've toned into this piece right here, and I've lost some of the scratches in here, but I like that though, because it creates that variation. But on some, maybe you can go in, you can kind of reveal, some of those lines, so you get a variation in line work. Back into there. And then you just achieve a little bit more of a varied surface. And variation, can be good. Sometimes you want things repetitious, for pattern's sake, but in an instance like this, I want a little bit more variation in terms of the marks. I think it just adds to the overall look a little bit. Okay. I mean, it could be never ending. I mean, you can do this and do these little carve marks, and then you can tone over this again, and you can get, I don't know, just all kinds of variation happening. Okay, but I think that is good. I can add, more cross-hatching in a different direction or whatnot, now that we've laid down that extra couple layers of ink in the black and the walnut stain. Alright, so from a textural standpoint, kind of interesting. Definitely more kind of wood blocky looking. It'd be kind of fun to kind of matte this off a little bit. You can do like a little bit of a white matte like that, and then kind of on a black piece of paper. Or this would look fantastic with a gold kind of edging like that. Let's see. I'm talking about the matting right there, but wouldn't that look fantastic like this? See that? And then see, of course, this is raised here, but this is where I like to do like a gold edge on this one, especially with that walnut stain, but you can kind of matte it off like that. And then this hard tile like that. One of the things that people always used to mention to me when doing stamp board pieces, when they have these little tile embellishments on their card, everyone always used to say to me, well, not everyone, but a lot of people that used it or used it in the class would say, when they send their piece to someone, everyone always wanted to know how they did these pieces, because they have a feeling that it's a piece of paper that they've adhered to like a masonite panel, but in their minds they're thinking, I don't think my friend did that, But no, it's just, the stampable, surface is inherently on, this board itself. So a lot of people, like I said, they thought their friends glued on paper or something like that onto, or cut out, little panels like this and did those types of raised embellishments. Okay, so anyways, that is my first kind of little, I don't know, experiment in that carved look. I've done different things like that in the past, with some different scenes. And if you want to find some other examples of this as well, you can look in the stamp board section of the Stampscapes website. I don't really sell a stamp board anymore, but you can find it online, and I'll put some different information on there as far as where you can find it. Dick Blick, the website has a lot of stamp board configurations and whatnot, bags of it still. But I think, like I said, they're going to be calling this art tiles, I think it is. And they're just so much fun to work on. But, I mean, look at this. I mean, this is as different a look as you can possibly get from rubber stamping. In terms of the imagery itself, it doesn't, you can give things a completely different look. All right? I mean, it's stamped imagery and everything, and you can utilize the same techniques, but just with this ability to go back in and add these scratched kind of marks like that. Like I said, it's a formidable ability to add to your process in, getting to the end result of a scene. So you kind of have to think a little bit differently, though, because knowing that you can kind of remove like that, and then go back in and color in over that, and then scratch back into that. It changes your kind of mindset when you're in the process of adding these types of marks, because, like, say, for example, you scratch something out and you don't like that. You usually can't just go back in and just color that out, or back out, and then go back in and scratch again, so it's a little bit more of a kind of a forgiving process. In theory, too, let's say you didn't like this whole scene, but, you wanted to use the tile again, as long as you didn't gouge out, right down to the, the board underneath this tile. You can take steel wool, and you can just use steel wool as an eraser, and it removes everything on the surface like that. And then you can start over again. So, probably the most forgiving surface you can ever do something on in terms of an application of media, and potentially the removal of it, and a complete removal if need be. So anyways, if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section, or if you've used stamp board before, or Claybord Smooth or whatnot, let us know what your experiences were with it, and I don't know what you used to use it for. Okay, so anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning into the channel. If you like this video, hope you like, share, and subscribe.